Ladies and gentlemen, it is finally time to give you all my final World Cup predictions. I'm not gonna lie, I made a lot of these videos already ever since the draw was released. We did an early prediction video, an updated prediction video, a new prediction video just a month or two ago. But now, with just 1 week away till the tournament begins, I think it's a perfect time to share with you all my final thoughts. Now, I know the latest prediction video wasn't too long ago, but like I said in the beginning, there are definitely projected injuries to happen. And unfortunately, I was right. Loads of injuries within this past month, week after week. We're seeing all these players in doubt to be in the tournament, and then the nightmare comes true with all these squads that have just been released as well. A lot of these injuries, I truly hate to say it, I think will have a massive impact for some of these teams. But which teams will suffer more than others? Obviously, we're going to take a look at everything today. And usually when I do these prediction videos, I just go straight into the group placement. But this time around, in honor of it being the final prediction video on the channel, I will be using the website Pooky in order to share my score predictions with you all. Pooky is a brand new predictor website launching on November 16th, just in time for the World Cup. On the website, you predict your scorelines for each match day in the World Cup, and if your predictions are amongst the best, you can receive loads of rewards. The game will be in its free-to-play stage during the tournament, but when you get scorelines right, you will receive Matic currency along with Pookie balls, which will be massive perks for your predictions later down the road. Pookie balls are not only the gateway to the game, but they also add a fun gamification element to the prediction, since they come in different rarities and traits, which will affect the points you earn after each prediction. Once you sign up, you can pick 2 free Pokeballs, so choose wisely. Even though it's free to play, you'll have the chance to win plenty of physical rewards, such as a PS5, FIFA 23, Pookie apparel like t-shirts and caps, and gaming e-vouchers for your preferred console after each match day. Make sure you pre-register on the link below to prove that you're a better predictor than me. Alright, let's dive into those predictions now, starting off with Group A. We got Qatar, Ecuador, Senegal, and Netherlands. Previously, and I know I'm not the only one who predicted this, many people are going with Netherlands and Senegal to advance to the next round. It is definitely more of a toss-up though. Look, I know they still got a full squad behind them, but I truly think Sadio Mane's injury for Senegal could very much hurt this side in the group stage. After I recorded this entire video, it has just been announced that he will be in the squad, as obviously Senegal are desperate to have him in, as he is so critical to the team. However, reports suggest that it will be unlikely that he can play. Hopefully, he is at least able to make a return in the final group stage match day against Ecuador. There's obviously so many other great players in that squad, but their attack could definitely be lacking. Not to mention their goalkeeper Mendy's confidence might not be at its best, because apart from the most recent matches, once Potter took over, he stuck to using Kepa for a long period of time. He's a great keeper, don't get me wrong, and he was recognized in the past to win Goalkeeper of the Year award, but he has been noticed to make some clumsy mistakes recently. Something tells me he just might not be at his A game at this tournament. Senegal were dark horses for so many in this World Cup as well. They look to be that African side to have a very deep run. And I was backing that thought as well, but I hate to say it, I might have to change my mind on that. This is still a very doable group for them without a doubt. But Netherlands look like the favorites. Qatar, there's no denying that they could potentially get some host advantage. And Ecuador are definitely an underdog you cannot sleep on. Their defense can actually very much pull their strings together and frustrate Senegal. Netherlands at this current moment of time are the most informed team in Europe. They had a phenomenal Nations League display, topping their group and going undefeated as well. On paper, their defense looks to be the best. Obviously, that doesn't always translate. But against these teams in this group, I feel like they can pull their strings together for sure. Now, Qatar are a very interesting side. I definitely don't think people should sleep on them whatsoever, because like I said, potential host advantage. Their striker partnership between Almoez Ali and Akram Afif could definitely cause damage. And they'd definitely be getting a lot of practice before this World Cup. They've even played club teams. They played Lazio in July. They also played Croatia's U23 side, and they lost to them 3-0. They recently lost to Canada 2-0, and they drew with Chile 2-2. So even though Qatar's form is looking a tad bit doubtful, I would not be surprised if they make it out of this group with that host advantage, and they've been preparing for this tournament for a decade. I mean, once they got that bid, that's when they started to naturalize a lot of their players, and it's definitely made them a stronger side compared to the past. They're playing in their first World Cup. Only one host nation in World Cup history has been knocked down the group stage, and that was South Africa in 2010. Will Qatar be the second one? Ecuador, on the other hand, have had some fantastic defensive displays. To put into context, the last time they conceded a goal was against Argentina in March. However, something that worries me about Ecuador is in those World Cup qualifiers that they should very much be proud of, they didn't have the best away record, and that doesn't blend well with the fact that they're in a group with the hosts. It's a very interesting squad filled with young talent. One of their oldest players, Enner Valencia, doesn't always turn up for the national team, but at club level this year, he has been fantastic. At Fenerbahce this season, he's gotten 12 goals and 4 assists in 11 matches. I've been doubting Ecuador in all my other prediction videos, but this time around, with this very unfortunate Sadio Mane injury, I do see this group shifting a bit from what I said in the past. Going back to the Pookie website, Qatar versus Ecuador, the first match of the tournament. I think it's going to be a thriller, actually. I don't see either of these teams coming on top. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw in this. The recent opening matches have been filled with a decent amount of goals, so I don't see this one being low scoring. I could be wrong. Ecuador love to keep it low scoring. Qatar getting some leeway, but also Ecuador's attack feeling confident on the first match. Now for the next matchup, Senegal versus Netherlands, I'm going to go for a 3-1 Netherlands victory. I think Senegal will get hurt early on. Senegal's defense could impose problems with the likes of Koulibaly still being fit. But I do have faith in the Dutch going all out, similar to how they did 2014 against Spain, with Louis van Gaal just getting absolutely ecstatic early on. I see it happening once again against Senegal. Now for the next match day, Qatar versus Senegal. Although I wouldn't be surprised if Qatar can pull an upset here, I don't want to doubt Senegal too much. I think they will still grab points in the group stage, and I think they will here. I'm going to give them a 1-0 win. And then Netherlands versus Ecuador. I could see Netherlands kind of struggling to convert chances here, but maybe finding themselves at the end. I think they'll grab a 2-1 win against Ecuador. And then for that final match day, Netherlands versus Qatar, I am going to say Qatar failed to get any wins at this tournament, although I know I very much could be wrong. I'm going to go for Netherlands winning this match 4-1. And then the final match, Ecuador versus Senegal. At this stage, it would be massive because it really would determine which of these sides will be advancing to the next round. I had them going very far, actually, in the last prediction video, but I'm going to have to change my mind. There's a reason why I make so many prediction videos, okay? My mind's always changing, but this will be my final one before the tournament starts. I'm going to say Ecuador are able to clinch it 1-0 against Senegal. Ecuador advanced to the next round, and here's what the whole table's looking like. We've got Netherlands in first with 3 for 3 wins. Ecuador in second with 4 points, 1 win, 1 draw, and 1 loss. Senegal with 1 win and 2 losses. They grab 3 points, and Qatar only grab 1 draw and 1 point in this tournament. This prediction, however, is very dependent on that Sadio Mane injury. So if he does end up playing in that last match day against Ecuador, I could change my mind on this once again. All right, well, that's already a massive change compared to my previous predictions. Let's move on to Group B now. We've got England, Iran, the USA, and Wales. Now, I've already mentioned in the other prediction videos, it seems like we got a clear favorite here, but we shouldn't rule out these other teams. One of them could potentially top England. It really could happen. Based on England's recent form, they got relegated in their Nations League group. I know a lot of England fans are trying to write that off, but the fact still stands that they lost to Hungary twice, one of the results being 4-0. That group was very tough for them, though. 3 European giants, one not being in the World Cup. But still, I think England's biggest loss for this tournament is missing Reece James. That's a huge blow of an injury. He has only been looking better and better every single year, but they obviously still have a lot of other fullbacks to rely on. Southgate still made some questionable calls on who he decided to leave out. Again, left out Tomori. I don't know what he has to do at this point to be in the England national team. Despite not me agreeing with all those picks, it's competitive. Without a doubt, they have so many great options. But for the other 3, USA, Wales, and Iran, it's going to be an absolute mess between those 3. I think it's going to be a very even playing field. All these teams have their strengths, and many have their weaknesses as well. The USA's biggest weakness is obviously their manager, Greg Berhalter, who has had some success going his way, but there's no denying his terrible away record and also some very terrible national team selections. He left out the likes of Pookie and Pepe, who have both had very solid seasons so far, and he's still going with his favorites. But regardless of that, this is still one of the best USA squads we are going to be seeing. Lots of young talent here with so much potential. Although he could rely on those great moments, I think they might lack some experience for this tournament though. Now going on to Wales, this is a side that people just love to write off and it's just never a good idea. They haven't qualified for the World Cup since 1958, but in the last 2 Euro runs, they've made it out of the group stage both times. Sure, you've got Bale, who, despite scoring the winner in the MLS final, still has not had the most impressive season at LAFC. But we already know, for the national team, he's a different animal. And this is his first and last World Cup. You already know he's going to be determined to do bits. Lots of young players as well. Brennan Johnson, Neco Williams. Wales have every reason to be hopeful for this tournament. Despite them getting relegated in their Nations League group, they were heavily focused on those World Cup qualifiers at the beginning, since their fixtures had to be delayed. And there's no denying they were in a tough group with, like I mentioned earlier, one of the most informed teams in Europe. Still put off decent displays in those matches as well. This is a group where things will be definitely more doable for them. And last but not least, Iran. Iran also have every reason to be hopeful. They got Carlos Queiroz back, who was the manager in 2018, and despite them getting knocked out in the group stage, he made Iran one of the most exciting squads in the group stage. They nearly made it to the next round, just 1 point shy off of Portugal. And that group was already very difficult with Spain and Morocco as well. Now this group on paper is way more doable for them, with the likes of Taremi looking to be in outstanding form. No reason why Iran should doubt their side either. I've been a bit back and forth with this side since they have been through an absolute roller coaster this year, but in the past, most of the time I backed them to make it to the next round. But now that we're going through every match individually, let's see if I go for that same kind of result. First up, England versus Iran. I feel like Iran will definitely hold their ground for most of the match, but England will find their way at the end. I'm going to say England are able to scrape through with the 1-0 win. The other match in match day 1, which I will be attending, USA versus Wales. This is a match where it's really make or break for either of these sides. I mean, they still shouldn't lose faith, but they're going to go with that mentality without a doubt, that if they want to make it to the next round, they got to put off a result here. I'm going to say it's a pretty interesting match with 3 goals. I'm going to go for Wales winning though, 2-1. Then moving on to match day 2, Wales versus Iran. I do think Iran will be able to possess those kind of tactics to frustrate Wales. Carlos Queiroz loves to defend. I think he will frustrate Wales here and play it safe, go with those tactics. I could be wrong, I know, but I'm going to say Iran are able to win this one 1-0. And then for England versus USA, what a matchup. Football versus soccer. England definitely look like favorites here, though. There's no denying it. I'll go for a potential Maguire mistake, but England still do the job at the end. I'm sorry, USA. I'm going for 3-1 England. And then moving on to match day 3, Wales versus England. England at this point, I think, have already secured that top place spot. And I'm going to say Wales fight to the death here. They know what's at stake. I think between all those other 3 teams, it's all going to go down to that last match day. So I'm going to say this one finishes in a draw. 2-2. And then for Iran versus USA. Am I really going to go for USA not grabbing a single point in this tournament? No. I'm going to go for a pretty stale match here. Both these teams have their advantages. I feel like the USA can win in the midfield. But like I said, Iran, tactically with their manager, seem to be better off. Regardless, though, I'm going to go for a 0-0 draw here. So here's what my group looks like at the end. England in first with 7 points. And despite Iran beating Wales, they share the same amount of points with them at the end. But since head-to-head does not apply here, Wales advanced to the next round simply because they scored more goals. Iran are heartbroken once again in the group stage. And then USA finished last with just 1 point. Won't be surprised if I'm wrong on any of this. Like I said, I believe I went for a different second place finish each prediction video. Well, I went for Iran twice, but I know in one video I went for USA, and now I'm going for Wales to advance. So I'm torn about it, but I do think Wales will be the ones to make that end statement. Will be very interesting group without a doubt. Now taking a look at Group C with Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Poland. I've said in my other videos, I do think Argentina are clear favorites in this group. Undefeated in such a long time, in 30 or 40 or so matches, I lost count at this point. Coming up against a frustrated Mexico, with Tata Martino in charge, this side does not look to be at their best. A Poland that seems to be rebuilding under their new manager Michnovic, who took over right before that last stretch of the World Cup qualifier playoffs. They were able to be convincing there, but the problem is this side always seems to blow it in the major tournaments. At least as of recent, where they have a great qualifier run and then just look dreadful in the group stage. And then Saudi Arabia under Renard seems like a side that won't be conceding as many goals compared to the last World Cup. Maybe they could pull off a surprise against Mexico or Poland, but I truly doubt it will happen against Argentina. In the past, I've said it's going to be a fight between either Mexico or Poland to get that second place spot. And I am still kind of torn about it. The thing about Mexico is history is backing them up here. Since 1994, Mexico always make it to the round of 16s and then get knocked out there. And with an unpredictable Poland, it's very much possible despite all the flaws on the team. The thing is, in their World Cup qualifiers, they cut way too many matches close, which they just shouldn't have. So it's like, do I want to believe in the Poland revival? Or do I think Mexico will continue to kind of barely hang on there and squeeze out of this group, despite those flaws under Tata Martino? I already stated Argentina are the favorites for me to top this group, but let's go into those scoreline predictions on Pookie. That first match day, Argentina versus Saudi Arabia. I think this will be high scoring. Argentina beating Saudi Arabia 4-0. The hype will definitely be there for this national team after this match if this scoreline comes true. Now for Mexico versus Poland, like I said, I think it's between those two teams and they're playing each other this early on. I think it's going to finish in a draw though. I'm going to go for a 1-1. Both teams left frustrated here and it remains a mystery who will have the advantage later on. And then Poland versus Saudi Arabia. Like I said earlier, it seems like Saudi Arabia won't be conceding as many goals compared to last World Cup. But you know what? I'm going to say it happens a bit once again, but they get a bit hopeful at one point, get a goal. I'm going to go for Poland winning this one 3-1. And then for Argentina versus Mexico, I know many Mexico fans are probably banking on them getting destroyed under Tata Martino against this amazing Argentinian side. But I'm going to go for a possible struggle here from Argentina. I still think they'll win. I still think they'll grab 3 points. but I'm going to say it finishes 2-1. And then for that final match day, Poland versus Argentina, I'm going to go for Argentina winning that 2-0. Comfortable, decent win against Polska. And then this is where things get interesting. Mexico versus Saudi Arabia. I'm sorry, Saudi Arabia. I'm going to say you lose one more time. But Mexico are only able to get 1 goal. Them cutting those matches close will punish them here, because that final table looks like this. Argentina in first with 9 points, 3 for 3 wins. Poland in second with 4 points, and Mexico in third as well with 4 points. They both had the same goal differentials as well. The only problem is I'm having Mexico failing to score more goals against Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia finished in last with all 3 losses. Now, I don't mean to disrespect Saudi Arabia. They're a neighboring country with the hosts. That definitely could play out to their advantage, but I'm going to say it does not here. I know some people are not going to agree with me on that, but it is what it is. I still think Mexico, Poland, and Argentina can get 3 points against them. Maybe they'll have one of them struggle, though. Who knows? This could happen the other way around. It could be 4 points for both of these once again, but Mexico gets more goals than Poland. It would be so interesting if it broke down to this. If Mexico's round of 16s run ends like that, would be massive. And Tata Martino surely would be sacked. Now taking a look at Group D with France, Australia, Denmark, and Tunisia. In 2 prediction videos in a row, I went for that World Cup curse. I still wouldn't be surprised if it happens, but it also seems so scary to bank on this close to the tournament. France in their recent Nations League campaign nearly got relegated. They pulled through at the end, but they finished third under Denmark and Croatia. Yes, they were going through some injuries. Yes, they were kind of testing things around, but so were the other teams. And not to mention, there are still injuries present for this current France squad. Their midfield is definitely not looking as sharp compared to before. They still have tons of depth, but it feels weird to see Kante and Pogba not in the squad. Regardless of the depth this country has is ridiculous. It would be absolutely insane if they don't make it out of this group. But we said the same thing about Germany last time. We said the same thing about Spain before then. But going back to France's Nations League group, they were in a group with Denmark. They're in a group with Denmark once again. Denmark already beat this side head-to-head twice in the Nations League. It's very much possible that they grab 3 for 3 wins in the span of 1 calendar year against this side. Since the beginning, I always went for Denmark topping this group, and I'm not going to change that. Kasper Hjulmand has done a fantastic job uniting this side. Sometimes at club level, each of these players individually don't 100% excel, but when they come together, it's just a different story. Kasper Schmeichel, who many people have been praising, their goalkeeper, hasn't had the most convincing season ever since he transferred to Nice. Actually, he's been really poor. But I still have faith in him to potentially turn up for the national team. Now for those 2 underdogs in this group, Tunisia and Australia. Last international break, they lost to Brazil 5-1 there, which was not convincing, but of course it was against Brazil. Not the most surprising score. The international break before then, Tunisians were very hopeful as they beat Japan and Chile by pretty convincing scorelines as well. 2-0 against Chile, 3-0 against Japan. Their last World Cup campaign was obviously led to disappointment, but it was no surprise England and Belgium advanced in that group. This time they very much could be more motivated than ever, as they are in a group with the World Cup winners, and every side just seems to go absolutely all out on the World Cup winners. We've already seen other underdogs beat the previous champions in the past. We shouldn't rule off this side also because they had decent runs in the last 2 Africa Cup of Nations, the last one making it all the way to the quarterfinals, beating Nigeria in the round of 16s. Meanwhile, Australia will also be tough to predict because they were looking very shaky in the World Cup qualifiers initially. In that group stage run, they just made the playoffs, only above Oman by 1 point, but then in the playoffs they bossed it. They beat the UAE, and then they beat Peru, after so many people believed Peru would be the ones to be in the World Cup. This could age terribly, but I don't really see Australia's striker force really making an impact against these teams. Jamie McLaren bossing it in the A-League. I don't know if it's going to translate internationally, though. Same could be said about their manager, Graham Arnold. With that all being said, let's go back to Pookie to look at the results I went with here. Denmark, Tunisia. I do see Denmark going with a very strong start here. I'm going to say they're able to beat Tunisia by a significant scoreline. 3-0. France versus Australia. I do think France will have a strong start to this tournament regardless, so I'm going to go for them grabbing a 2-0 win. Now for that second match day, Tunisia versus Australia would be a huge battle because it's going to be the battle of the underdogs. If any of them want a chance, they got to grab a win here. I'm going to say it's Tunisia. I'm going to go for a 2-0 win against Australia. Then moving on to Denmark versus France. I am going to go for Denmark grabbing 3 for 3 wins against France in this calendar year. I'm saying it is a 2-1 victory once again. Now for Tunisia versus France, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go for that upset. I think France can dominate the match, but Tunisia just hold off. Defense looking sharp here. It's an absolute upset, I know. It's going to sacrifice me potentially getting another upset right, But yeah, biga. I'm going to say Tunisia are able to beat France 1-0. And then finally, Australia versus Denmark. I'm going to go for Denmark 3-for-3 wins. I'll say they win this one 3-1. So here's what my final table is looking like for this group. I still have Denmark topping it. I'm still going for that World Cup curse where Tunisia advanced over France. And by a pretty decent point margin as well, 3 points, thanks to that final match day. Let's move on to Group E with Spain, Costa Rica, Germany, and Japan. Two favorites here, but to be honest, I feel like it's reasonable to doubt either one of them. Spain topped their Nations League group recently, yes, but it really was down to the wire. And not to mention Luis Enrique, who have seemed to kind of revolutionize this squad in some sense. Obviously, he's going to have his preferences in order to have that new generation pull through, but he left out some pretty decent big names. Sergio Ramos wasn't the biggest surprise because he left him out last time for the Euros, but leaving out Thiago from Liverpool is massive. No David De Gea either, although Simon seems to be the designated keeper at the moment for Spain. Germany, on the other hand, were in that same group as England, finished third. Another side that's suffering through some injuries. Timo Werner will be missing the World Cup. Some might argue that that's not the biggest deal in the world, but still, some other attackers will be going missing. Marco Reus as well. Going back to the Nations League, though, I was a bit surprised that Hansi Flick finished third. He was such a phenomenal manager at Bayern Munich, so maybe this World Cup expectations aren't too high for the Germans, but they still should feel confident to get out of this group. At the same time, though, don't write off these underdogs. Japan, very exciting side. We saw them pull thrillers in the last World Cup. Got knocked down in the round of 16s to a high-scoring affair against Belgium. Their squad has a lot of underrated players that can pull through for their team. Daichi Kamada, Ito, Minamino. This side could definitely be a surprise at the World Cup. Recently, it put off a fantastic display against the USA. It genuinely should have been more than 2-0. Meanwhile, Costa Rica have a lot of inspiration to rely on. Their fairy tale in 2014 where they topped the group of death. So obviously that was a lesson to all of us predictors to never rule out this side either. Keylor Navas, their goalkeeper, can definitely frustrate these Giants as Germany and Spain both seem to sometimes lack clinical finishing. Lots of question marks for these Giants, like I said, but here are my scoreline predictions. On that first match day where Germany faced Japan, I think we will see Japan's true colors here. To be such an exciting side, it will catch Germany off guard, but they will get the result at the end. I'm going to go for a massive 3-2 scoreline. Now for Spain versus Costa Rica, I actually do think Spain will struggle a tad bit at the beginning, similar to how it was at the Euros last time around, but they picked themselves back up at the end of the group stage. I'm going to say it happens here once again. They don't get a loss, but it finishes in a 0-0 draw. Keylor Navas comes in very big on this match. Now for that second match day, Japan versus Costa Rica. The battle of the underdogs, I do think Japan has what it takes to get a solid result here. I'm going to say Japan win 2-0. Now for Spain versus Germany, I believe the last time these sides faced each other a few years back, Spain demolished them 6-0. I don't see something like that happening again, but I do think there'll be loads of goals. I'm going to go ambitious for this group and go for some high score lines. I'm going to say Spain win this match 4-2. And then for Japan versus Spain, I do think Spain can just escape from this, although Japan will put off a very nice display once again, but it's going to finish 2-1 going Spain's way. And then Costa Rica versus Germany, I think it's going to be very low scoring and they'll frustrate another giant once again, but I'm going to say unlike Spain, Germany are able to score against them. I'm going to say it finishes 1-0. So here's my final table. I've got Spain in first with 7 points, Germany in second with 6, Japan in third with 3, and Costa Rica in last with 1 point. I'm sorry to those underdogs. I truly believe they have what it takes to prove a lot of us wrong, but I am going to go for the favorites here. I think they can definitely pull off interesting displays, like I said, but it just not being enough. Those European giants go through. Now for Group F with Belgium, Canada, Morocco, and Croatia. At the beginning of these prediction videos, I was doubtful for Hrvatska. I thought they might just barely scrape through, but I am feeling more confident about this side. I do think they'll have a solid display in this tough group. Like I mentioned earlier, they topped their group in their Nations League over Denmark and France. So much general criticism just looking at those retired players and Luka Modric's age, saying that the squad's just filled with old talent. No, that back line is totally revolutionized. So many young players that are absolutely killing it. Gvardiol is the go-to example, obviously. He nearly picked up an injury before the World Cup. From what I've been hearing, it seems like he will be playing though. He'll just have to wear a mask. I think Croatia still has one of the best midfields in this tournament. Luka Modric still absolutely balling out at his age. Brozovic, one of the best center defensive mids in the Serie A. Unfortunately picked up an injury in the last Nations League break, but it looks like he'll be returning before the World Cup. Mateo Kovacic, I feel like he is many times an unsung hero for Chelsea. The only thing that somewhat worries me is our center forward option. If Zlatko Dalic tries to bring on Livaja more, I do have more faith in that role though. He is fantastic in the Croatian league, grabbing some insane numbers. I went into my Croatia explanation a bit too early. I got excited, but forgot to mention, I said it before. This group is filled with possibility. I mean, you've got two sides that went really far in the last World Cup, but there's still some reason to doubt both of them. I mean, Croatia seemed to have those weaknesses, but now it seemed like they kind of improved in some sense, especially in the defense. Just that attacking option I mentioned, I feel like is a bit worrisome. But Belgium, on the other hand, hasn't really seemed to improve their defense. They're still relying on Vertonghen and Alderweireld, and I don't know if they'll be the best partnership. Against these very energetic Morocco and Canada sides, it could be costly. And I've said it in many videos, and I'm sorry I'm going to say it again, but obviously this Belgium golden generation is not the same as it used to be. Eden Hazard used to be known as one of the best players in the world. Very much not the case anymore, but he's still captaining the side despite not being at his peak. Kevin De Bruyne, still a phenomenal midfielder. They can definitely rely on him to be the difference in these matchups. Courtois is known to be one of the best keepers in the world, but his stats this season have not been too impressive. So maybe this form could translate to the World Cup, who knows? That's obviously a bit hard to tell. Romelu Lukaku is in the squad, but he is still recovering from injury. His actual World Cup presence on the pitch is to be confirmed. It would be huge trouble if he is not fit, as he is their top goal scorer. But obviously we gotta talk about those underdogs that you definitely shouldn't underestimate. Very energetic sides, like I said. Canada have scored the most goals in 2021 out of any national team in the world. Yes, they were coming up against CONCACAF teams, but come on, that stat is regardless impressive. Apart from Alphonso Davies, you've got Jonathan David, Kyle Larin, Stefan Eustáquio, Tejan Buchanan, and all these players have been unifying wonderfully under their manager John Herdman. Without a doubt, although it's not much of a competition, he is the best manager in CONCACAF. This is their first World Cup since 1986. Of course they'll be competitive, but the pressure won't be as high. For Belgium and Croatia, it most certainly will. Expectations are very high for both of them. Third place and second place in the last World Cup, surely these sides should get out of their group. Morocco, on the other hand, like I explained in the last prediction video, got rid of Halil Hodzic. Now they're relying on Regragui. They've got back Ziyech, who hasn't played much this season, but of course Morocco fans are still gassed because he's done a lot for them in the past. They also might be struggling with a center forward option. If they rely on Nesiri, he isn't the most consistent for the national team himself. But with that Ziyech return, we can definitely see some magic up top. Before I get into these scoreline predictions, I just want to repeat, I don't blame any of these sides being hopeful to get out of this group. They truly each have every reason to believe in themselves. This could age terribly, but I'm going to say there's not many clean sheets in this group. Starting off with Morocco, Croatia. I do think Morocco will have some hope at the beginning, but Croatia will come back. I'm going to say it finishes 2-1 for Hrvatska. Belgium versus Canada. I'm going to say Canada have a potential very exciting start here. Catch Belgium off guard. I'll say it finishes in a 2-2 draw. Now for that second match day, Belgium versus Morocco. I'm going to go for a Belgium 3-1 win. I think they'll pick up their form against Morocco. They'll be frustrated. And I'm sorry, Morocco. I think at this point, they wouldn't have a chance to make it to the next round. Because I do have Croatia beating Canada 1-0. I'm going to go for that being my only clean sheet. Croatia grabbing one against Canada. So for that final match day, Belgium versus Croatia. Massive match to see which one will be on top. I'm going to say it finishes in a 1-1 draw. I could be wrong, but at the moment, I don't see a winner coming out of that. And then for Canada versus Morocco, I'm going to say Morocco are able to really pick up their form here. They grabbed their first win in this World Cup, and they beat Canada 3-1. So here's what my group's looking like. It hasn't changed from my previous prediction. I've got Croatia on top with 7 points. Belgium in second with 5. Morocco in third with 3. And Canada in last with 1 point. Now for Group G, with Brazil, Serbia, Switzerland, and Cameroon. Brazil look like clear favorites to top this, but they should 100% not underestimate any of these teams. Serbia and Switzerland are some of the most underrated sides in Europe. Cameroon have not had convincing displays recently. They lost to Uzbekistan 2-0, then lost to South Korea 1-0, and then recently drew with Jamaica 1-1. So I still don't have the most faith in them. However, one of their strikers has been absolutely balling out. Choupo-Moting on Bayern Munich has been getting some amazing numbers in the Bundesliga this season. And with already the likes of Aboubakar and Toko Ekambi, if Cameroon make it so he's fit into that system as well, their attack can do wonders for them. I think so many people are still ruling them out though because there's so many reasons to go on about these other sides. Switzerland have put some very interesting results against these top teams. I think they drew against Brazil in the last World Cup. They made it all the way to the Euro quarterfinals in the last tournament, beating France in the round of 16s. Switzerland have also topped Italy in their World Cup qualifier group, which ended up having Italy go to those playoffs, and we all know what happened there. And now in the Nations League, although they lost them in the beginning, they ended up grabbing wins, getting the last laugh against the likes of Spain and Portugal. Serbia, on the other hand, are on an absolute come up with a lot of talent balling out throughout these recent years. The only issue for Serbia might be their defense, but at the same time, it seems like they kind of had a wake-up call during that last Nations League break. They conceded an early goal against Sweden, but then they really picked themselves up and the attack just went all out to make up for that defensive mistake. Maybe conceding that goal is all it took to kind of sharpen them up. It's going to be tough though against that Brazilian attack, without a doubt. And they're playing them first. So for that prediction, I will be going to this match as well. I'm obviously hoping for Serbia to pull through, but I just think Brazil are too strong. I think they'll go out with not a bang at the beginning, but get a decent display. I'm going to go for Brazil winning this 2-1. But Serbia, if you're not happy with what I have to say, Irfan sent me this special clip just in case you guys do end up pulling through. He tends to bring you guys luck.
Serbia, ovo je za vas. Who are these Brazilians? Vi ste najjači na Balkanu sad. You guys are the Brazilians of the Balkans, all right? Yes, you lost to Brazil 1-0 in 2014. Yes, you lost to Brazil in 2018 2-0. But this is your year now. You see how you guys played it in the recent past? You see how you qualified for the World Cup? That's going to continue here. Brazil's not coming back here, bro. They don't know what's going on. They're going to think they're going to beat you 1-0. They're going to think they're going to beat you 2-0. But no. Serbia, you're going to win this game. You know how many? You're going to win 2-1 over Brazil. Idemo Serbia, ajmo!
Now for Switzerland versus Cameroon. Sorry, Cameroon, but I'm going to say Switzerland get a comfortable 2-0 win here. In the next match day, Cameroon versus Serbia. I do think this is where Serbia can go all out. And I'm going to say they score a lot of goals here. Again, don't mean to disrespect Cameroon, but I'm going to say it finishes 3-1 for Serbia. And then for Brazil versus Switzerland, I actually see this one being an exact repeat from the last World Cup. I'm going to go for another 1-1 draw. Switzerland just seemed to really surprise these big teams, and I think they could do it once again, even against a South American one. And then that final match day, Cameroon versus Brazil. I'm going to go for another hefty loss for Cameroon. I'm going to go for a 4-1 Brazil win. And then that final match, Serbia versus Switzerland. I'll never forget how entertaining that was in 2018. I think Serbia will get revenge here, and I think it's going to be very high scoring. I'm going to go for Serbia winning on this one with an absurd 4-2 scoreline. Yeah, I'm hoping for 6 goals. I cannot wait to see this match live. To any neutrals, I highly recommend you tune into this match. So here's what my final group's looking like. No changes from my last prediction videos. I've got Brazil at first with 7 points, Serbia in second with 6, Switzerland in third with 4, and Cameroon in last with 0. So the point gap between first, second, and third was not too far off from each other. Switzerland, despite getting a draw against Brazil, just weren't able to do enough. The problem is for Serbia, history is not on their side. They have never made it past the group stage since becoming an independent nation. I think this is their chance to shine. They got the talent, they got the quality. Just don't bottle it against Switzerland, and you'll be okay. And finally, the last group we're looking at, Group H, with Portugal, Ghana, Uruguay, and South Korea. This is a group as well where I could see an underdog pulling through. And it's a group filled with rematches. The most famous one, Uruguay versus Ghana. One of the most iconic matches in World Cup history, where Uruguay broke Ghana's hearts, and actually all of Africa's hearts, to have an African team finally make it to the semifinals, thanks to Luis Suarez's handball. Portugal versus Uruguay. Uruguay were the side to knock Portugal out in the round of 16s in the last World Cup. Portugal versus Korea. South Korea's current manager, Bento, was Portugal's previous manager before Santos took over. Portugal, I've said it so many times, what a squad. When you look at the players, you'd think this is definitely a favorite to potentially win the tournament, but not under Santos. He does not allow this side to excel at its full potential. He was great in 2016 when their squad wasn't as good on paper. His tactics worked very well there. Cristiano Ronaldo also hasn't been looking at his best form. It's unfortunate. I really hope to see this guy excel at the World Cup. Santos will probably still start him. For Uruguay's case, they went through a bit of a roller coaster throughout the World Cup qualifiers. Well, it was an upward trajectory. They failed to get some good results against teams they should have been under Oscar Tabarez, their long-term coach. He got sacked. In came Diego Alonso, who finished the job at the end to qualify Uruguay for the World Cup, but lost to Iran in the recent friendlies. So we could potentially see another Asia team upsetting them. And they're actually playing South Korea first. The squad will be missing Araujo. There is some rumors that he'll come back, but it seems like overall the theme has been that Araujo will be missing out because he has a long-term injury, which is a huge loss. I feel like he's their most energetic defender at the moment. They still have some veterans to cover the positions, but it might not be the same without him. Same goes for the attack. You got Suarez and Cavani veterans, but then you've also got the likes of Darwin Núñez, who hasn't been the most consistent this season, but is still proving to be a promising player for the future. For South Korea, their best player, Heung-min Son, picked up a pretty bad injury against Marseille. It was rumored that he wouldn't be able to play at the World Cup, but it seems like they're hopeful that he will be able to start, just maybe not at the very beginning. I'm not too sure. Still updates to come. But if he was missing, that would have been a huge loss for South Korea. He makes such a difference on the pitch. They still have a lot of other star players to count on though. In the defense in particular, Kim Min-jae has been fantastic for Napoli. He can definitely frustrate some of these teams. Ghana, on the other hand, have picked up a lot of new players throughout this year that were dual nationals, such as Lamptey, Inaki Williams. They finally convinced Salisu to join the national team. This is going to be a very unpredictable side at the World Cup because a lot of it's new. We haven't really seen them blend in together and play as a team too much. I'd be definitely worried about this side, and I actually think they could cause some upsets in this group. For those matches on Pookie, the first one, Uruguay versus South Korea, I'm going to say Uruguay start off strong with a 2-0 win. Portugal versus Ghana, I'm going to say Ghana struggle a little bit at first, and Portugal grab a solid win themselves. I'm going to say they win 3-1. For the second match day, South Korea versus Ghana. If they want to make it out of this group, this is their chance, but I'm going to say they're both left frustrated here, and it ends in a 1-1 draw. Portugal versus Uruguay. Will Portugal be able to get their revenge? I'm going to say no. Uruguay are able to just beat them 2-1. And then for that last match day, South Korea versus Portugal. I'm going to say it's a pretty interesting affair, and South Korea are able to frustrate Portugal here. I'm going for a 2-2 draw. Ghana versus Uruguay. Will Ghana get their revenge? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to go for that upset here. Ghana are super motivated to do something here. After that 2010 heartbreak, Uruguay also won't be super motivated as they already secured that knockout spot. I'm going to say Ghana are able to get a 2-1 win against Uruguay. But like I said, a result like that would not be enough for them to make it to the next round, but they still share points with Portugal at the end. Here's what the table's looking like. Uruguay first, Portugal in second with 4 points, Ghana with 4 points as well at third, and South Korea in last with 2 points. That point gap is insane. That would be massive. And now looking back at it, I actually went for this kind of result for second and third in so many of these groups where they share the same amount of points at the end. But regardless, I've changed a decent amount of my predictions compared to the last video. That just goes to show how indecisive I am. And also, I'm probably going to get most of this wrong, let's be honest. The World Cup's filled with surprises. I went for some safe picks here, some upsets for sure, but those upsets I went with could easily be wrong, and we could see some other ones in different groups. So let me know all of your thoughts in the comments below as always. Thank you all for making it to the end of this video. If you did enjoy, please hit that like button. Subscribe if you're new. Don't worry, I'm going to do a follow-up video for my knockout predictions based on what I had on these group standings. I just gotta save it for another video because look how long this one was. Anyways, guys, thank you all for making it to the end. Like I said, take care. Boa noite.